kicking off a new series. It's the new year, and a lot of times around this time of year, we are talking about resolutions and things we want to do differently and things we want to change. And actually, we got a listener submission of like they wanted us to talk about routines and motherhood and parenting. And Anna and I started talking about it, and we kind of use that as a diving board to make the idea really big and do a whole series on healthy habits. So it's a new year, and we're going to kick off a series talking about healthy habits.
Yeah, so just kind of an overview. Why are habits important? What are some good routines for us to have? There's a lot of different aspects that we want to talk about, but first of all, why should we take these big ideas and make them habits? What's the importance of establishing routines in our lives? Why not just do something one day and then hope that we can fall back on it another day? Why habits? Why routines?
Yeah, as a Christian, I think, and I've said this before in one of our podcasts, that the Christian life is not one of coasting.
Hmm.
We should be growing, we should be moving towards something. And I was trying to remember, there's like a quote, if you're not growing, you're dying. I can't remember exactly. I should have looked it up. But I was thinking about that because really the Christian life should be very intentional. And so when we make these routines, we're making plans for how we're going to pursue godliness. And that's a command. Paul tells Timothy, pursue godliness. As training, physical training is of some value, spiritual training is of eternal value. And so I feel like setting up routines and habits protects us from just coasting. And really, there is no such thing as coasting. How often do we realize, like, oh, this relationship isn't good, and we look back and it's because we weren't investing in it. We were just coasting, and if you're coasting, you're not staying the same.
Yeah, you're declining. I think that establishing routines also makes us more intentional with our lives. It makes us more productive. In any aspect of your life, you can't just go to the gym, you know, and I'm going to go to the gym on Tuesday this week and maybe next week like Friday will be free. If there's not consistency, your muscles aren't changing, you're not growing, you're not going to see the results if you're not consistent. It is hard to be consistent with things in our everyday life, but I think if we are inconsistent and don't establish healthy habits and routines in every aspect of our home life, we'll see that we start to struggle. If we don't have healthy habits in maintaining our household, our laundry is going to pile up. You know, you have 11 people living in your house, right?
Yep.
So if you're not intentional about every day starting a load, folding some clothes, you're going to run out of clothes very quickly.
We
And
will
so I
drown
think,
in laundry.
right. And then you're going to spend a whole weekend just trying to catch up, trying to recover. And that's time spent away from your family. That's time when the kids are probably running amok because you're not being intentional with them. So I think that it's obvious. It's one of those things, we keep saying these things should be obvious, but it is hard to make ourselves establish these routines for our home, for parenting. We just hope to do something right one day and it's just kind of snowball and everything just always goes right as a result.
Yeah, if you're just sitting around like, oh, I'd like to do X someday, it's probably not going to get done. We have to make a plan for how are we going to make this happen? And even like in the big scheme of things, like, oh, I want when my kids grow up and move out, I want a relationship with them. Okay, you can't just spend their whole childhood hoping that. We have to make a
Mm-hmm.
plan. How am I going to develop this relationship with them? How am I going to cultivate that? And so we need to look at the big picture, and then instead of just sitting here hoping that it works out, putting our hands to the plow and figuring out a way to work towards that. And then trusting God, laying our head on the pillow and knowing that we did our part and the results are God's, but we're not just sitting here hoping that someday something happens.
Right. So I think any aspect in your life that you would like to see improvement, that you would like to see growth, you need to establish these routines that just become second nature. You're always pushing, you're always becoming better in these areas and growing, and it's sanctifying. And so whether it's with your quiet time, whether it's with one-on-one time with your kids, whether it's growing the relationship with your spouse, we have to be intentional. It's not just a, oh, I remembered to do this today. I hope I remember to do it another day. We have to be so intentional with how we live our lives. And it's not like we can change absolutely every aspect all at one time. So I think it's good to prioritize. Prioritize which relationships are most important to you. Obviously, we can't create routines and intentionality in every relationship of our lives all at the same time. So prioritize those relationships and start working for those. Prioritize the tasks in your house that need to get done. Um, so I think having good routines, good habits, it helps us to grow, it helps us to mature, it helps us to make those priorities and really, um, we've talked about how this is a term that we don't love before, but set healthy boundaries because we prioritize
Mhm.
those parts of our lives so well. I don't see how, especially having a large family like you have, that your house could be run peacefully or efficiently if you didn't establish routines for yourself, for your children. Ah, what chaos that would turn into.
Right. And it would feel really unstable. One thing that is really good about routines for children is it gives them a feeling of safety and predictability. I know we're busy now, but I know mom always has time to talk to me at X time because there's this routine and it's safe and it's trustworthy. My mom has planned this time with me. And so I really have seen that for our kids. It's helping them feel safe. They know their needs are going to get met because we have structures in place. In my marriage, we have a lot of kids running around, and there's something that happens in the day that I want to talk about, but we can't right now because there's kids running around. But I feel safe because I know at the end of every night, my husband asks me, how can I love you better tomorrow? And so I feel safe in that moment to not bring it up because he's going to bring it up and I'm going to get a time to speak. And so those routines help us feel safe.
I think, yes, absolutely safe, but also less anxiety and less
Hmm.
turmoil. I think that's the number one complaint from women in America is worry and anxiety and stress and chaos, and consistency and stability can help so much in those areas. There's so many things that feed the anxiety and feed the chaos, but healthy routines can calm you and bring peace to your life.
Right. And you were mentioning earlier, like with a family our size, it's just necessary. And a lot of people will ask, like, how do you do it? And part of the answer is we have a plan for how to do it and we follow the plan. But on the other hand, like even people with like smaller families, you can't just assume that things will get done. And maybe that's a trap to think, oh well, I only have, which there's no such thing as only one child. One child is an eternal soul, and that's a lot. But you might think, I only have one child. I have all the time in the world. But then how often are you dropping balls? So it's part of our human nature that we have to set up these structures for ourselves in order to be productive and responsible, and also in order to pursue righteousness.
Yeah, I do think that it's a stumbling block sometimes for me. I don't have a young child, so it shouldn't be very hard to keep our house clean. It shouldn't be very hard to keep the laundry caught up. There's only 3 people living here. I mean, it's not nearly as much dirty clothes as what you have to manage or dirty dishes as you have to manage. We only run our dishwasher once a day. Like, I'm sure that's,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. But with those thoughts in your mind, whereas in a large family, your tendency might be to, if you didn't have good routines and good habits, to enter into panic mode. How are we going to
Hmm.
possibly get all this done?
Right.
The flip side is, in a small family, it has a tendency to make you a little lazy.
Hmm.
You have time to get that done. It's fine. It's fine. If you're all sitting in the living room after dinner and everybody's kind of tuned into their own thing and not really interacting with each other, it's fine. We have tons of time to invest in each other. I don't have to be as intentional with my one on one time with my children because I just have one. But those are precious moments that I'm allowing to slip away because I'm not being intentional with them. And it really, it's a struggle for me sometimes to know that I know you've mentioned before that some of the special times with your kids are riding in the car when it's just
Mhm.
you and them one on one, and that's special because it's different, because it's strange, it's special, it's a proof to them that you're being intentional with time with them when they're one on one in the car with you. That's normal for us.
Mm.
So, how do I take those everyday moments that are normal and how do I make them special? How do I make
Mhm.
them times that he'll remember and with fondness? You know, riding down the road with his mom is a special memory and not I'm her only kid.
Every
Of course,
day.
it's just
Yeah.
me. You know, and so
Yeah.
I do think that there's a different set of struggles for having a small family,
Mhm.
but there's no excuse to be less intentional with your time. It
Right.
it's still important because you can't just let all of those moments pass away because there's more opportunity.
Right. Yeah, so this is not a big family struggle or a small family struggle or a married person struggle or a single person struggle. This is just the human nature that we can't do everything and we have to be intentional with what we do and how we do it. So that's why we have decided to kind of tackle this for the next however many episodes. And we want to talk about a lot of routines that we've put in place in our marriage and in our parenting and in even just the practical household things that have helped us structure our lives and prioritize the relationships that need to be prioritized and prioritize pursuing righteousness and training for godliness. So that's why we have decided to take a whole series to talk about these things because we just started realizing how much of our life this does affect.
And you should hear completely different perspectives
Mm-hmm.
because, like we've pointed out numerous times, Abby's coming from a large household with a lot of things to juggle with the unique needs and calendar dates that their foster care and opportunities add to their schedule and how to find that balance for them. And then for my small family and how that looks a little bit different and how intentionality is just as important. But we hope to tackle all sorts of different things. So if there are some things that you're struggling with, some ideas, drop them for us because we'd love to add that. We want to talk about our marriages. We want to talk about our children. We want to talk about homemaking. We want to talk about hospitality and
Mm-hmm.
worship and meal times together. There's so many things that you can do that are such small things, and again, seem so obvious to so many of us. But Abby mentions things all the time that I think, oh, that's obvious. Why have I not been doing that? Oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness, I'm so sad that I didn't start doing that long ago. But even if you're like me and you are just a small family, if you're raising a teenager and you hear something and you think, oh goodness, I wish I would have done that, it's not too late. Like
Mm-hmm.
Abby said, you want to have these great relationships with your children when they grow up. If you haven't put in the work now, they're not going to think that you're entitled to that time and that relationship later. These are the days where you earn those trusts and you put in the work to be able to have that reap the rewards and see the fruit from that relationship later. So it's not too late. Even if you think I have teens, I wish I could do these things, but I can't. I'm sure you'll hear some practical aspects that you can put into practice in your life now. I'm sure I'm going to learn things. And that's what's so great about doing this. Abby and I just get to talk and learn so much from each other. It
Yeah.
challenges us to dig into the word and to hold ourselves accountable. So we'll probably admit sometimes that we've fallen short, that we saw a
Yes.
huge problem in our lives and we decided that we needed a habit or routine. Or for me, I am probably going to mention sometimes that my husband stepped in and said,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I love you so much, but this is an area where we've got to do better. and he was able to help me establish a routine because he's a much more organized person than I am. And so he's helped me grow so much in so many areas. And so you'll hear some of our humbling moments and you'll hear some
Mhm.
of our celebratory moments. And we're excited to share
Yeah.
those with you and
Yeah.
hope that you're able to grow right along with us.
Yeah. We sharpen each other. And here's a very important habit of a Christian life is repentance. And that should be a habit. That should be something. It's not just how we enter into our Christian life. That is the mark of a Christian is repentance. Seeing an area you're falling short and not wallowing in self-loathing, but repenting, saying, I have fallen short. I am sorry. Sometimes we're doing this to our saying these things to our kids or saying these things to our spouse or just saying these things to God. And I'm turning away from that sin and I'm turning toward pursuing righteousness, however that looks in that. And we've had to have lots of conversations like that with our kids where we've called a family meeting to repent and turn away and tell our kids what we're going to do to pursue righteousness and pursue making whatever area we fell short in right. And a lot of these habits, at least for myself, um, were put in place after I've seen me falling short in something. It wasn't a lot of these things we didn't walk into intentionally. When we were 18 getting married, we didn't say, hey, we every Monday morning we're gonna take our one child to breakfast dates. No, that was something we added as we were falling short. We didn't say when we were 18 and getting married and saying we wanted all the children that we could possibly have that we wanted each kid to have a stay up late night. That's something we added when we were falling short. And so there's all these routines that you're going to hear that we've put in place for our marriages and our family. A lot of them is because we saw that we needed them when we weren't doing them. So we have grown, we are growing. I'm sure that we're going to grow together. I want to hear from you guys what your routines are. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be good.
I am too. Yeah, I'm excited. And I think just to reiterate what Abby said, we are all moving towards sanctification and we are not Jesus. We want to look more like him every day, but we are not perfect. And if you think that everything is just running just perfectly in your life right now and you don't need to add any habits and you are great, brace yourself because we are not, you are not. And there's always areas that we can grow and we can be better and we can do better. So let's grow together. Let's lean on each other. Let's sharpen each other. Let's admit those deficits and
Mhm.
pursue godliness together.
Yeah. And if you think you have all the routines in place that you need, like let us know. You can be a guest speaker on the podcast because we might need to learn from you.
We will
But
take
that,
notes.
yes, that also whenever you're talking about routines and structure, you you can think of probably a person right now who has none and their life is chaos and you're looking at them like, "Oh my goodness, let me buy you a calendar." But you can also think of these people that are enslaved to their schedule and their
Yes.
routines. And so we also need to be mindful of that when we're talking about routines. Like, we're not trusting in these routines to save us. We're not trusting in these routines to sanctify us. We're not trusting in these routines to save our children. We're not trusting in these routines to produce children that still love us after they move out of our house. Um, and we're not enslaved to them. We're in charge of the routines. We're making the routines to serve us. We are not serving them. So we need to be careful with that. At the end of the day, we're trusting God. But these routines are just one way that we're trying to be faithful in all the areas that we are called to be faithful in. And then we lay down and we know that to the best of our ability, as it seemed right in the time, we were faithful. And now we're going to go to sleep and pray that God grows the harvest with it.
Yes, just be good stewards of the life and the lives that the Lord has
Mm-hmm.
entrusted to us. And I do think it's important to recognize that we have different seasons. And so we, like Abby said, we can't be slaves to our routines and our schedules because those things change. over the course of our marriage, my husband has worked um, his own business and set his own schedules, which was lovely. We enjoyed that very much. But he's worked nights, he's worked second shift, he's worked day shift, and so as our lives changed in those different seasons, our routines and our schedule had to change too. You have to be a little bit more flexible. So you prioritize the big things and you work with the season that the Lord has placed you in.
Mm-hmm.
So if you find yourself a slave to that schedule, well, we might not have ever seen my husband for a little while because we would have stuck on that schedule. We had to
Mm-hmm.
change and had to evolve a little bit to make sure that we were still really prioritizing the important things. And so, some seasons of your life, you're not going to be able to focus on all of the things, but prioritize the important things. Keep the main thing, and so many of the other things will fall into place.
Right. And even the day to day, not even just from season to season, the day to day, we're going to have to be ready to make a decision to ditch the routine. And something we talk about with our kids a lot is a phrase that I go to a lot is people are more important than things. And so
Mm,
there are a lot of times that a person shows up on our doorstep and the routine is gone because people are more important than things. And so we have to be able to, in the moment, weigh, okay, what does righteousness look like right now? What is being a slave to Christ and not the routine look like right now?
mhm.
And sometimes that means we're holding to our routine, and sometimes that means, kids, we are going to change course because a need just arose that is more important, because people are more important than things, and Miss Sue is more important than nap time. And this, with Jordan being a pastor, like, things come up and people need counseling and funerals get scheduled on vacation days. And that is a time that we have the privilege to teach our kids that people are more important than things. And dad does protect his time with you, mom protects her time with you, but there is also room to serve others when it wasn't on our calendar.
Yeah, modeling grace for our kids, grace for ourselves, and grace for our schedule, and being intentional with relationships over possessions and the routines. That's so important. And sometimes we break our routines for important needs. Sometimes it is a, like you said, a sick friend or a death, but sometimes it's an opportunity to make a memory
Mm-hmm.
as a family and to just do something that's
Mm-hmm.
off your routine, but is going to be a core memory for your kids that they carry with them forever. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's fun, sometimes it is for a sad hard reason, but
Mm-hmm.
I think our kids are always going to remember the safety and stability of schedule, but also the joy that we had
Yes.
sometimes when we broke it, and the
Yep.
sanctification that sometimes when we had to break it for a not so happy reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we can all probably identify our own personality where we are going to tend toward. Are we going to tend toward the more chaotic, or are we going to tend to be very rigid? And we have to know ourselves and know how to kind of counteract that bent we have to be more balanced. And for me, I know I need to put be spontaneous on the calendar. And that's my personality. If I just float along and be like, oh, someday I want to surprise my kids with something crazy, I'm never going to do it. So I just put it on my calendar, be spontaneous.
See, I was going to ask which one you were because I feel like I'm the opposite. Like, oh, it's a beautiful day. Let's just throw the schedule out the window and just go be outside and grab a book and you grab your fishing rod and let's just go seize the beautiful day. And I think
Yeah.
my bent is to break the schedule and routine in pursuit of fun.
Yeah, that's not me. And it may be a season thing of like, the routine feels safe for me. I know what is expected of me inside this routine, and I know how all my kids are going to respond, and I know when I change diapers and where I change diapers, and I know nap time's coming. And so it might just be a season thing more than a personality. But I remember this spring when the weather started changing, I would make myself look at the 10-day forecast and plan a day to let the kids like do something fun outside. Um, but I will not just wake up and be like, "Oh, it's beautiful. Let's do something." That's not me.
See, it's not so much I still love my home. I still love just being here and not necessarily going anywhere, but we have a great outside, and it's just
Yeah, you
sometimes
do.
hard to stick with the daily grind of a school schedule when, oh, there's beautiful day and sunshine and comfy chair by the pond and fish to be
Yeah.
caught and dogs to be played with and
I need at least a 3-day warning for a beautiful day. I have to plan for
oh,
this.
yeah. Yeah. So I mean, we all have different vents and different things that we need to cling to. It's important for me to establish structure so that our entire life doesn't just become footloose and fancy free. And Abby needs to lighten up a little bit, apparently.
Yep, pretty much. Sounds about right.
So hang out with us over the next few weeks. We're going to tackle all the things, and I think our first one is establishing healthy habits for your marriage. So we're going to talk about the importance of prioritizing that single most important earthly relationship.
Mhm.
Aside from the relationship that you have with the Father, this
Mhm.
relationship is the one that models Christ's love for the church. It should
Mhm.
be the most important relationship in your life. And I think having an intentional um, relationship with your spouse and establishing healthy habits in your marriage is one of the key ways to ensuring that the rest of your household is living in peace and harmony and operating
Mm.
how it should.
Yeah. Yeah, again, you're not going to float towards unity. If you're not being intentional, you're probably growing apart. And maybe you're hearing that and you're thinking, "Oh, I know that to be true." Maybe you're living
Yep.
that. So and the reason that we have some routines in our marriage now is because maybe we've learned that the hard way. Especially as we've added kids, we've had to add some routines for our marriage. So I'm excited to talk about it. I think we've grown a lot um, in recognizing the things that we need and finding a plan to meet those needs. So I'm excited to talk about it, and I think it'll be good.
Yeah, I do too. And again, if you have some questions, anything that you can think of that we can tie into this healthy habit series, please let us know because we're really excited and we'd love to be able to add some things onto that. We'd love to be able to challenge ourselves and dig deeper and establish even more healthy habits and routines for our homes. So we will see you in a couple of weeks and
Yep.
talk about healthy marriages.
Yep. Bye.